grief is really hard to go through, but I also think grief is really, really easy to sometimes push away. And that could just be for me. Like, I'm not saying this is like the general public definition of grief, because I don't think there is a definition of grief. Like, I think you go through it so differently with everyone, but for me, like, it was so easy for me to be like, well, if I don't think about it, like, it's not gonna be. And like, even if I tried not to think about it, I would still think about it, but I would just like, if like I had a moment where I started like getting overwhelmed or like emotional, I just like shut it down. And then like, that's what I said, like, it just like those scars took longer to heal.
Created on purpose and for purpose.
Hey, welcome back to the Darren Earlewine Podcast. Darren Earlewine, your host, joined here for the Earlewine Podcast that we're doing with Julie Earlewine. Welcome back, Julie.
Hello.
And joining us now for his all-star interview, Ty Earlewine. What's up, Ty?
What's up?
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited. Very excited.
Very, very good. So we sat down with your brothers, sat down with you, and then eventually we'll sit down with all five of us and just kind of talking about all the transitions, because we're in a kind of an interesting transition period as a family. Cole going to his junior year of college, you going to college here in a couple weeks, Knox moving into high school. And so just sitting down with all you guys and just talking about kind of where you have been, where you're going, what you've learned, and enjoyed all the conversations so far and excited to have you in the mix.
Excited.
So this is your first time on the podcast too, right?
Yeah, I think I did the radio show like one time, but
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
on
that's
the
what
podcast.
Cole
That's
said.
what Cole said. He was on the radio show too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump in. Julie, you got the first question.
Yes. All right. Your very first question of the day is
It's like I'm on Jeopardy.
exactly.
What
Let's
is
see.
this answer?
In our family, we have 3 children. What is something about, actually, I really will like to hear this answer. What is something about being the middle child that you actually have liked?
I actually like a lot about being the middle child, but I think the biggest thing I liked about being a middle child was just like when you get to be a younger brother and learn from Cole all through your life, and like once we got to a certain age, me and Cole became less of like fighting brothers and more of like friends. And then being able to take that and be like an older brother than Knox, it's fun to have to get to play both roles. It can be difficult at times, like you still have someone ahead of you and you still have someone behind you, and like I feel like you get lost in the middle a little bit, but a lot of times it has a lot of positives. Just like you learn a lot, you get to teach a lot. It's just fun all around, like to be in every situation. Like, you know, you go to an older brother's game and you learn from that, or you go to a younger brother's game and you get to teach his friends or him at things like that, or just like through all the situations that I've got to do, from Cole's connections that I've now turned into now Knox's connections through me. It's just been a lot of fun, like just being a middle child. And I don't really know like if I could think of any negatives of it. I feel like when you're little, like you always think about, oh, the youngest is the favorite, and like Cole was like the oldest, so he got to do all the other things. But as I got older, I realized it doesn't really matter a lot of times. Like you have your own story. And that was just like what was so different about being a middle child is like I think I have a broader story than both Cole and Knox just because I got to be both roles. So, yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's a great answer, Ty. I
So
like it a lot.
I do too. And there's a part like, so I guess within that, you talk about sometimes, you know, they can say like a middle K can get lost, you know what I mean, in the shuffle of things. But like, what are some things like in our family where like where you really do feel like you really get seen, like, or moments when it's like, and has that been something that's as you've gotten older, or like when are there environments where you feel like, yeah, I'm really seen in our family?
I think there's 2 times I really see myself like in like being seen. Obviously Knox hasn't got to high school yet, so he hasn't had these opportunities, but like when Cole went through high school, he was very much sports focused and hard-headed about things. And then once I got to high school, sports were important, but I was like, this isn't what I want to do full time. And I still played sports like all the time, but I did a bunch of other clubs and other things that like I really cared about. And then I felt like I got I don't want to say like seen, like I didn't do it to be seen, but like once I started doing them, like just the ways that it started like giving me another like platform of like, hey, I'm doing Blue Crew or I'm doing FCA, like one of those 3 things, like one of those things like outside of just being a football and a baseball player and like a student, like whatever, it just like felt really seen. And then also I think I see myself a lot of times sometimes in like the absences that I'm not here. Like Mom and Cole are very hard-headed and they like to get things done, and you and Knox can butt heads sometimes about things. And I feel like a lot of times like I can be hard-headed about certain things, but I can also be super chill about other things. And Mom talks about this, and I say this with a humble heart, like being the glue of a family and like being able to be seen of like somebody that like keeps everything in check and like doesn't add extra problems when things are needed, just like kind of being in my own lane, but also like making sure everybody else is still like connected and like together. So yeah.
Do you feel like, because Mom and I have talked about this, we feel like there was a pretty big shift for you 2 years ago, like when Cole went away for college. Like, how have you like noticed that when it's like you became the oldest in the house and you didn't have that, the persona of like, or not the persona, he was a real person, but like the older brother being here. Yeah. Like how did that feel when you went from being the middle to being the oldest? Like what was the difference there for you?
I think it was very gradual. Like with Cole's 2 surgeries, like he was still home a decent amount.
We touched on that earlier.
So like when he left, I remember all my friends being like, "It sucked." My brother left for college, and I was like, "It sucked." And then it was like, "Okay, he's back now for 6 weeks," and then he went away again, and then he came back for another like 4 weeks. So it was like very gradual to learn. But I also felt like, and this is just a difference between me and Cole and me and Knox, is like me and Cole would go to everything together sports wise because we were so much closer in age. Like a whole 2-year difference. And like I think when I left, Knox was still, or like when Cole left, Knox was still at a point where he was going into 7th grade, so he wasn't like grown up yet. Like he was still like before puberty, like he was still like a kid. And then like gradually over time he starts like becoming himself, and like actually his true character comes out, and then I'm like helping and like shaping that. But I never felt like it was a real situation where like I was the big brother at this, like unless it was like wildlife when I was like leading him. But like I also made it a big point to all the kids, like he's my brother, but like here, like I'm his leader. Like it's not like I favored him anymore. If anything, I actually probably didn't favor him as much. I actually probably let him like figure it out on his own a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know like a specific like time where like it clicked in my head of like, okay, you're like the oldest here. Mom always jokes about like the house shifting, like the persona of the house. Like we go from like go and like stressed out sometimes about things, and then like when I was the oldest, it was always kind of like, yeah, whatever we want to do today, like we don't have to do a bunch of stuff. And I think that might have been the click, but I don't really have like a specific time where I was like, yeah, this happened to Knox, and I was like, yeah, okay, Cole's not here, I need to be the big brother. I don't think that's happened, and I think it's totally different in me and Cole's situation just because of age gap.
Did you feel like you had more space to just kind of be you, though?
Yeah, I guess I felt like I had a little bit more space to like be me, but I also feel like I had a little bit less like space to kind of be me because like I was so like to myself when Cole was here, because like it'd be like Cole's going through his senior year and it's all these big stuff, and like I would just kind of like float along with the flow of things. And then like when I was the oldest, it was like, what are you guys doing there? Like it's like I was like the one to talk to, because like I said, Knox is still pretty young, so like we were close, but Knox was still in that 6th, 7th grade boy stage where you butt heads with everybody because you're changing and things. And I just think like for me, like I felt a little bit more in the spotlight about like my things, and I was going into my older years of high school, so sports got more serious with varsity things, and then like started doing wildlife and Blue Crew and everything. So like I guess a little bit, but not to a point where like I don't know. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
All of my life, my best friends have been middle children. And I think that's a really interesting thing that I've noted. But like my 2 people that I consider like, aside from being married to your dad, but my best girlfriends of my whole life have been middle girls. And I think it's unique the way birth order works, and I think it does firstborns create firstborn personas often, and middle children create middle children personas, and babies create baby personas. Our baby definitely creates a persona. Anyway.
For real, 100%.
But, and so does Darren, who's the baby. He creates a persona. Anyway, but one of the things that like I think in the past 2 years with you that's been really cool to watch is that I've realized that I have a unique connection with all 3 of you. Like it's a unique connection, closeness with all 3 of you, but they're all uniquely different. And I think that the beauty of being a middle child that you bring has been such a blessing to me. Like it just, like I joke that like the vibe changed, which we had some really good friends tell us that the vibe will change, and it should change because when it's necessary, it's a great thing that happened. Cole getting the opportunity to go flourish and become like the man of God and like grow in independence. That's Gary. It happened for you here in, 6 weeks or so. But what do you think, like you being the middle child, like how do you think that's shaped you into the person that you've become today? I have seen it in the past 2 years really come alive in so many positive ways. So I'd be interested to hear how you feel like, being a middle kid has shaped you.
I think like initially, I think growing up, it just kind of made me a little bit more to myself, which can be good and can be bad. Like when it's like you're to yourself, like I handle some of my things I handle things by myself, or like I don't need a bunch of other people like being around me or talking to me or anything crazy. Like I always joke about like the social battery. Like I like have a social battery, and then once it's out, I'm like, all right, I want to be alone for a bit. But
You've been that way your whole life. You were that way when you were little.
That's just like, I think that's just how I was made. And I think also like, being a middle child shaped me a little bit differently, because I think it made me so much more like, I guess, independent in certain things. Like there's a lot of things that like you feel like you can go unnoticed, but then when the things do get noticed, like it's nice. And like I talked about earlier about like being a middle child, of like being the older brother and the younger brother, like it really does shape you to be like both roles of like you have to check yourself whenever like you're 2 years younger than your older brother, like you can't like, you're not at that point in your life where you can do that, or you can like say that to like each other, or like you can't like tell him what to do for certain things. And then like for Knox, it's like, well, now I'm in the situation where I can say these things, but it's also been through Cole, been through me, and now to Knox, so like it reframed to be more like direct, I guess. And like I'm not saying like these are like bad things, but I think just like anything, it's like if you like as like a joke, like you step up to Cole to like fight as brothers, and like Knox started doing that, and it's like as a middle child I was like, well, I'm never gonna beat Cole because he's 2 years older than me. And then Knox like gets a big head about it, and then it's like, well, not gonna beat me. So it's like a funny like analogy way to put it, but it's just like true. It's like you have your stepping stools, and I think being the middle child, like it molded me to like I have to be the one point, I have to be like the older brother and make sure Knox is on the right path, but also I have to be the younger brother of like still receiving the knowledge from Cole because he was 2 years ahead of me in high school and 2 years ahead of me in sports and everything. So I think that was just kind of how it shaped me, of like receiving knowledge before like actually giving it, and then once I gave it, I would critique it to like where I felt that it was delivered correctly or incorrectly, or like however that was, and then just like making that the person that I am, not only in my sibling situation, but like as you talk about, like most of your friends are middle childs, like just like even in my friendships with my friends, just like whatever it needs to be, I just make sure that like I have that same mindset with my friends than I do at home, because then if like home's healthy, then that's how your friendships can be really healthy. So that's just kind of how I guess it shaped me. Like I don't really know like what else to say like about shaping me. Like I don't think it's like been like something I think about all the time, like, oh, I got this trait because I'm a middle child. I think it's just like those are the main things I notice, just like kind of checking myself sometimes before I like give things out.
I think it's interesting to see too, because I know like you're talking about, we could see, the Ty's social battery would run out, you know what I mean? I can remember times, where people would be over or whatever, and then all of a sudden like people would be like not in our house, and then Ty would be like by himself in the pool or something, like just getting your own time. And it's just been interesting too to see that, like, I think there were points where like when you only have one kid, and then like you parent them and you're like, well, I guess this is how this works. And then you have a whole new human being with completely different personality traits and everything, and realizing like there's nothing wrong with Ty, right? Like
he just enjoys it.
And being able to shape and shift how we parented, of like, okay, yeah, we need to make sure he knows like it's okay, like you can.
Of all three of them, he was really the only one that was able to play alone, like go and be and like
that's a good point.
Entertain himself.
Yeah,
like you were more than like you weren't like upset or anything. You like legitimately wanted to play alone. Like
yeah, for sure.
We're like, get away from me, all of you, overwhelming.
You're all talking
You're
too much.
all talking too much. There's too many of you.
100%. Definitely, that's true.
Definitely, the order of it goes is Ty needs the most alone time, then me.
Yeah.
Then Cole, and Knox and Darren never want any.
No, they'd never want to be alone.
Possibly true.
Probably.
Possibly true.
Yeah.
So, Ty, talk to me about we'll switch a little bit of the focus on like your faith journey. So, obviously, our faith has been handed down, through generations. Julie's parents, my parents, now to you guys, and it's been awesome to watch that, growth for you. Like, when would you say, like, what were some, like, I guess maybe some milestone moments, or as you look back, maybe through junior high, but even, in high school, where you really started to feel like, yeah, I'm stepping into much more of an ownership of, like, my own relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, I think, like, obviously, like, when you go, like, through, like, your whole life starts to change with high school and everything. Like, I remember, like, my freshman year, like, I was still, like, very much, like, I had faith in things, but, like, as a freshman in high school, like, I just didn't have that, like, personal one-on-one connection with the Lord. Like, I still obviously, like, believed and everything, but I just didn't, like, understand, and I wasn't mature enough of, like, okay, like, this is a practice that needs to happen a lot for it to be, like, strong. But, like, I think for me, when I, like, started to feel like the closest to God, and I started to really take my, like, ownership of it, was when I just got, like, the opportunity to lead for Wildlife. And then, like, all through my personal wildlife and young life journey, like, I had friends that would reach out or, like, would do something. I always felt like I was closest to God when, like, I was, like, getting to, like, pour into others, which was really good. And, like, I felt really close to God. And, like, but then also, like, there was times where, life would stack up and people would be relying on you. And then you'd be like, I haven't looked at my own faith in, a couple months. And then you're like, look at it and you're like, okay, well, I'm giving out this knowledge, but I'm not using it. I'm not, like, doing it in my own personal life. And yeah, and I think that's just, like, I always talked about it with my buddies or my wildlife kids, like, about, like, finding what your rock of your faith is. Like, there's so many things that you can do to practice your faith, like easy, like, prayer or, like, reading your Bible or worship music. And, like, I always, like, challenge them, like, find the one that you really enjoy. And for, like, the longest time, I always, like, it was just kind of installed in me, like, that, like, praying was, like, the number one thing. And then, like, I kind of, like, wasn't doing it as much. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not feeling the same, like, connection as I used to. And then, like, I've always struggled to, like, consistently read my Bible because I was like, I've been at church since I was literally born. Mm-hmm. Like, I've heard these stories, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. Like, I've heard these stories 100 times, and every time you can get something different out of the Bible, which is just so awesome because it's like a living text of your faith. But I think, like, for me, once I found my rock of, like, I really like worship music, and it's just like, it doesn't have to be, I don't have to, like, force myself to do it. Like, I can literally just get in my car and drive to work or drive to practice or to school and, like, be like 15 minutes and it's just like worship music and you actually listen to, like, what it's saying. Like, which is what some music is like nowadays, whereas people are like, oh, like, the beat behind it's cool, like, it sounds cool, and then you're like, you don't actually listen to the words. And I think that was, like, what worship music always did was, like, once I learned all the words to all of them, then, like, you actually think about what you're saying and, like, what you're, like, professing to the Lord. And I think that was just, like, when I felt closest to God when I was personal, was, like, with worship music. And then, like I said, when I was closest to God normally, it was just, like, when I got the opportunity to, like, start other people's walks of faith or continue them or walk alongside them. And it was just, like, really interesting for me because, like, growing up, like I said, like, I'd be able to play alone. I wouldn't do, like, anything, like, where I was really, like, I'd have time where I'd want to be alone. But, like, when I'm in those settings, it's like, if I'm with the Lord, I want to be with others. I want to bring people with me. Mm-hmm. And I just think, like, that's such a great skill to have. Like, humbly, I say, like, it's a great skill to have, and people have told me that. But I also need to, like, work on the weakness of, like, being my one-on-one relationship with the Lord and not relying on, like, the other people to bounce my ideas or my faith off of. But yeah, I'd say definitely, like, leading and then just, like, worship music.
Well, I've noticed that one thing that I have seen in you since even when you were younger is I can remember times you coming back from, like, wildlife or young life, and, like, and this is a gift I think God's given you, and, like, I can see it. Maybe I see it because it's how I operate a lot of times, is, like, you would talk to me about, you learned something and then you immediately began kind of understanding it through how you would want to teach someone else or how you would help someone else through it. Like, I can remember sitting in the driveway one time, you came back and, like, you were just going on and on about how, like, the kind of friend you want to be and how you want to help people understand this. And then, like, you immediately started talking in like an analogy, which is not normative. but I think it's a teaching and communication gift that God's given you, where you were like, Dad, it's kind of like I see people, they're like, they're in a hole and like, I want to dig down and I don't care. Like, it was like, and it was really well thought out, but it's something I started noticing in you that like, I think there is something where you may learn and grow the most by serving and leading others. But I think you've made an amazing observation and this is something I had to learn, is that when you do grow by pouring out, you have to make sure that you're refilling yourself, or else eventually you're empty. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's been cool to watch that part of you grow in that. And so to turn a little more of a serious, tone, a lot of times when somebody comes into like their senior year, you have all these thoughts and dreams, and it's going to be this, and like, following in your brother's, steps with Cole, like his senior year, they went to semi-state in football, and they went to semi-state in baseball. And since we are a big sports family, like it was just seemed like all these, like, it's like a movie, what I mean? And like a inspirational kind of movie. And your senior year started much more on a solemn note, where literally, a few weeks before your senior year starts, we get a phone call that one of your, childhood buddies, unexpectedly passed away, due to a heart situation. Then you get halfway through your senior year, and another one of your good buddies that you played football all the way up, died in a tragic car incident. And like, your senior year has kind of felt like a movie, but it wouldn't be the inspirational, like, feel-good sports story. I mean, it's a broad question. I probably should make it more specific, but we'll kind of chase the conversation around and see where it goes. But what's that been like for you to know that's like, this isn't the way I would have drawn up what my senior year and this ending of high school looks like, but you've had to walk through it,
Yeah, I think like I always would like talk to my buddies about it, or like Knox's friends, like that I would never want like anyone to go through, but I went through my senior year, just like really difficult. Before the two incidences, like I just really had never had real like grief in my life, like a couple of family like health things that popped up, like that were worryful, but nothing that like truly like kind of like stops time for you. But yeah, I mean, like if you go watch any movie online, it's like, oh, your senior year, like you do all this fun stuff, like you're supposed to like win all the state championships, whatever. And I think like it really just changed a lot of the perspective on a lot of things. I think it kind of brought me back down to earth about what life really is. Like your senior year of high school, it's like I said, like it's like a movie. It's supposed to be like so fun, and like it's like the biggest year of your life, like whatever. But yeah, I think like losing both of them just really like, and there was parts of them that like, it was a weird way that my life came to be in the last, 365 days. Like it has been a year since everything happened, since the first one happened. And it's just like really like, I guess like shocking to like think about. Like I think about it like a lot. It's like always like a thing that I think about. But I also think it was very interesting. Like it happened twice. I think like the first time it was a situation like very, very sad, very like full of grief, just really, really like torn apart about it. Didn't really know what to do. And then like the second time it happened, same thing. Like I was still very, very sad, very like full of grief. And then I just like felt a lot more anger. Maybe it was just like because it happened again or whatever. But I just felt a lot more like anger in that situation. But it was also really weird, like being one of the people that had already been close to something else like that, and like being able to like walk your friends through that at 18. It's really, really weird. Just like the whole idea of it all, like, cause like loss is just so like devastating, and it's just really confusing. Like it's really hard to wrap your mind around like that it's fully like that, like they're actually really gone. And I just think that like changed my perspective on just how I live my life. I also think like, that day you said it happened before like first 3 weeks of my year, and then my entire senior year, I got to honor him and everything I did through my senior year, just like with prayer. And like not only like did that become a part of what I wanted to do for me and for their family. But also, like, the Lord took my simple thought and, like, it went everywhere. Like, a bunch of people had patches, and the football team wore stickers, and, like, photographers would always take a photo of me, like, praying on the 30-yard line for him, and, like, that was all over the Instagrams, and then, like, it's in the yearbook now. Like, I never did it to, like, get attention. I did it because I lost my friend, and I felt close to him when I did that. But then, yeah, just, like, to be able to honor him and, like, have that legacy, like, continue with him. And like I said, it's been a year. It's really, really weird to think about that you've gone through so much in a year. But it also still feels, like, really fresh. Like, it's almost like you get to these marks and things happen and it gets really difficult again. And then, like, the second time I talked about, like, I think it was just a lot more of just, like, what is the Lord doing in my life right now? Like, it's supposed to be, like, the best year of my life. I already, like, have started to, like, get back on my feet from the first one, and then it just happens again. And then, like, that's really when, like, I was super close to the Lord after that happened, just really relying on him, like, trying to figure out what was happening. And then, like, that month afterwards, just kind of like when things kept going on with that situation, just really, really doubtful about, like, the Lord. Just, like, I don't really know what to do. I was like, there's no way this is, like, going to turn into anything. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then, like, I've seen it more and more, like, there's no good way that it can be. But, like, the ways that it's affected my friends and the community, and just the ways that, like, people have come together or, like, found the Lord or started to, like, figure things out or just even appreciate life itself more. Like, I have, like, even myself, like, I just, whenever I catch myself looking ahead in life to college or to whatever, I'm like, well, if I miss the moment I'm in right now, then I don't know how much more of my life I'll actually, like, take in and enjoy if I just keep looking for the future. So I think it's just really impactful. Like, it was really impactful of, like, learning the tough lessons of grief, and then also being like, you have to live in the moment, because if you don't live in the moment, then you're going to miss it. And then your entire life, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like 50. You're going to be like, I have just been looking forward to college, and then my job after college, and then finding a spouse, and then having a kid, and then, like, all those, like, the baseline dream that people say they have. But just really being like, okay, like, it's my summer before my freshman year of college. Like, all right, what are we going to do right now? And then we'll figure that out when we get there. I think that's just kind of how it impacted me, because both incidences were very abrupt and just, like, blindsiding. So I think it's just a very weird lens that you get on your body, like, on your mind once something like that happens. And it just sucks that lens comes from such tragedies. But I'm also grateful for it, because it's just made me enjoy the time that I have a lot more. So yeah.
Do you feel like being able to help others in the process, because obviously, you know, with your leadership with, you know, Young Life and discipling, you know, younger kids, and then just, you know, I think from our parental perspective, like, it felt very obvious to see the positive, I guess, spiritual impact that it had on kind of your friend group. But do you feel like helping others through the process help you deal with your own grief? Or, I mean, did you seek after that, like, purposely, or did it just kind of came natural? I mean, what are because I think grief is a really, really confusing and difficult thing. I think we can get stuck in it really, really easily, because and it can be so cyclical. It's not like a linear thing. Like, I'm better now, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I would think Mom would agree. Like, we think you did a phenomenal job of being there for people and being a sounding board and helping people in the process. But is that something you sought out because you thought it would help you, or was it just kind of a natural response?
I think, well, when it first happened, like the first loss, no, I don't think it was natural at all. I think I did it sometimes as a coping thing. Like, I was like, if I help other people, I'm not gonna, like, have to deal with it myself. And then that's just really where I got really caught up in my own emotions, and it just, like, didn't heal as much as you can heal from something like that, but as fast as I could. And I didn't want to rush that process at all, but I was not saying I was wanted to go faster, but like I just delayed it a lot, putting myself in others. And then when it happened the second time, I was like, well, I've already gone through this. I know what this feels like. And that I didn't like seek after it, but I just found myself in situations a lot of times where people like would lean on me for things. And I remember being like, I've gone through this. I kind of know what I'm doing. But that's what really sucks about grief is like you think you know what you're doing, and then like you completely process it differently. Like first time I was very sad and sorrowful. So was the second time, but the second time I was just a lot more angry. But the second time I started feeling myself like if I was around others, I wouldn't be as sorrowful. I feel like I like could distract myself from it a little bit. And then I remember like one of the nights I tried to go back to like my normal life and go to like a baseball training, and on the way home like just like finally process what had happened like for myself and just hi bud.
Our dog joined the podcast.
Our dog is
He's probably sensing something.
yeah.
He's sensing the
I think
sadness.
Ty feels sad. I need to go comfort him.
Yeah, I think it was just like, and then like finally processing for myself and just like breaking down and understanding like what had happened. But yeah, I think grief is really hard to go through, but I also think grief is really, really easy to sometimes push away. And that could just be for me. Like, I'm not saying this is like the general public definition of grief, because I don't think there is a definition of grief. Like, I think you go through it so differently with everyone. But for me, like,
It's very wise.
it
what
was
you're saying.
so easy for me to be like, well, if I don't think about it, like, it's not going to be. And like, even if I tried not to think about it, I would still think about it. But I would just like, if like I had a moment where I started like getting overwhelmed or like emotional, I'd just like shut it down. And then like, that's why I said like, it just like those scars took longer to heal in life. So yeah.
When you think about Barron and you think about Mason, and in losing them, what is one thing like in the grief because of losing them you think you want to do better? Because I think in life we learn a lot of lessons, obviously through our faith, but we learn a lot of lessons through what we go through with people. And he uses people, God uses people in our scenarios on this earth. And like, if you had to think of like something of a, like when I know you know this about both of them, but what is the thing that stands out to you about both of them that you want to take and carry on? And that's maybe something God showed you or just a moment in time showed you. But like sometimes in our grief, we unfortunately learn how to be a better us. Has that happened to you? And would you put words to anything that, you know, each of the way they lived maybe impacted you to live more that way now?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. I think, well, Barron and Mason are very much different people in aspects. Barron was very quiet, very, like, I loved being around Barron with everything in me. And, like, I think that's what I took out most of it is, like, Barron was just always kind and always in, like, a good mood and always joyful. But he was to himself, and that was what we all loved about Barron. Like, it was very, you know, like, he was our friend, and you never had to worry about him not being your friend. Like, we would do whatever, and I always was, like, we were together all the time. And I think that's what I learned about it is, like, you don't have to, like, consistently speak or, like, consistently be around someone for them to like you. Barron just had, like, a gravitation of, like, someone to really love, which is the hardest thing because, like, at first, like, high school got busy and I didn't talk to Barron as much. And then when it all happened, like, it was really sad. But I never, like, really caught myself feeling regretful about anything because I knew that in my heart and I hope in Barron's heart, like, we were still very good friends. And that was just how we always were. Like, not as much guys nowadays with social media and everything. Like, you don't see a lot of guys that text each other all the time every day to keep their friendship up. But, like, if you see them and, like, played basketball with Barron all the time and then played rec basketball at the high school with Barron, like, just, like, a simple text for him to be on our team, and it was a lot of fun. And then, like, which is a little different because when Barron's, like, so quietly comfortable, and then, like, with Mason was so joyful and loud and, like, expressive. And I think that's what I learned the most from Mason, and I always had, because, like, my freshman year I didn't really want to play football, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try this out again. It's high school football. It's supposed to be fun. And, like, Mason was the first guy that I really, like, was around a lot. I mean, we both played defensive back. And I was just always around Mason, played the same side of the field, like all the time. So I think, and you see videos of Mason and everything, of Mason like dancing around and having fun. And like, I never really was around Mason. He was never like, carrying a lot of sorrow or like giving his problems to you. And Mason had a hard life. Like Mason really did. And he still was so expressive and so loving to everyone else. And I think that's what I learned the most of, was like the simple idea of like being joyful and like enjoying the moment, like smiling all the time, like can really change. Like if you have like if something really sucks and you're like, I'm having a really bad day. And then you're like, well, me sitting here having a bad day is not going to do anything for me and the people around me. And I think that's what I learned from Mace. It's like, even if you're having a bad day, like you can still turn it around and pretty fast. And Mason was a very tough competitor in football and everything. He was very good. And he would get frustrated with himself about things, and then like we'd kind of calm him down, and then he'd be back to like his fun, like let's go play like attitude. And I think that's just what I learned like about like from Mason so much, is just like if you still have an ounce of joy in you, like you should use it. And that's what Mason always did, and I love that about being around him. And I think that was just like the hardest thing about it, is like someone so fun, energetic, and joyful. Like that's a really sad thing when it's like someone. And obviously Mason had so much potential with everything he did. And like we all walked through that process with him of like, hey dude, like you can legit like make it. And he did. And it was like really awesome to see. And I think that's just what added so much more to it all. Just Mason's potential and everything. But yeah, I there's not a day that I don't live my life nowadays that I don't take something from one of the two of them. And I think like, I mean, I had learned these lessons before they were gone, but I think they stuck to me a lot more now that like they are, I mean, they're not gone. Like I will see them again, because both of them, like they were Christians and they believed in that. So I think it's just like, and their families are so loving, and like they've given me so much and taught me so much, and just given me so much love over the years. And even since both the like tragedies, like they've both done a lot for me, more than I think even maybe they know, just like seeing how strong they are in the different things they do. But I think there's definitely more that you learn from things like that, and like from the people. Once they're gone, you notice a lot more. But those are the two things of like that I definitely noticed about the two of them.
Yeah.
Well, I think, one thing we've talked about is, I remember talking to my friends and adults about like, when this happened this year, of like, hey, have you ever in your life lost 2 friends in 1 year? And it's like, I don't know, like all my adult friends, everybody's like, no, like I've never had to go through that. So for your class to have to experience that, like, we're not going to get into theological debate in this podcast of like what God causes and what he, allows, and his plan for things, whatever. I don't know the answers to that, but I know that there is going to be an opportunity that you guys are going to be uniquely prepared to live with a depth and with a love and with a perseverance, that a lot of kids will not have the opportunity, I guess you could say, to live with that depth. And I think Mom and I have been super proud of the way that you've walked and led through that. And it's nothing that anyone involved in either situation would have chosen, but I think you and your friend group have done a great job going through it.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Earlewine Podcast. And as you can tell, as a family, we definitely like to talk. And so these episodes went a little bit longer than a regular episode. And so we've cut them in half. And so this will be the first half of this conversation. When we come back, we'll close the conversation out. Hope you're enjoying it. Would love to hear from you. You can always email me at darren@darrenearlywine.com. And please subscribe to the channel, whatever you're watching or you're listening to. I would love to have you be a part of the growing community of the podcast. And until we talk next time, just remember, God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far away. And he's created you on purpose and for purpose. We'll see you on the second half of this episode.